One stock which has been in focus has been ITC on account of the hotel demerger. Here's Sharad joining in to tell us all you need to know about this demerger taking place and what gets remained in ITC. Sharad?
Well, yes, ITC Hotels is in focus, and of course, today itself, the entire ITC stock is trading ex the hotel business. Now, of course, calculating the fair value, important things to know, it's debt-free. There would be a cash transfer of almost 1,500 crore rupees. And if you are holding 10 shares of ITC, you will get 1 share of ITC Hotels. Now, brokerages are expecting that the pricing could range between 113 to 300 rupees per share. Now, also remember that British American Tobacco is expected to hold roughly 15% stake in this new demerged entity. Now, calculating the fair value, the difference coming in between the January 3rd close and January 6th opening would be there. And interestingly, this would be excluded from the indices for 3 business days after listing, provided there are no circuit breakers. That's an important point. Now, of course, there might be a delay in exclusion if the stock starts hitting the circuit levels. Now, of course, the listing is expected to happen over the next 1.5 odd months by the mid-February. But now let's also look at its peer, Indian Hotels, and of course the growth triggers coming in the 3 segments, the non-F&B business, Taj Sats category, and also they expected to 2x their revenues by 2030 to a consolidated basis of roughly 15,000 crore rupees. But if we take overall, the recent listings post the demerger, the entire time taken for the record date, Jio Financial, it took almost 33 days, Piramal Pharma, it was 45 days, and NMDC Steel was 4 months. Of course, comparing IHCL and ITC Hotels is also a very important point, which I'd like to point out. The rooms, if you look at it, roughly, you could say 13,000 rooms are there when it comes to the ITC Hotels. Almost, you could say double when it comes to Indian Hotels. Revenue per room, the RevPAR, that's an important operational parameter which we check it for hotels. It's almost even Stevens, but if you look at the occupancy, that's on the higher side when it comes to the Indian hotels. Now, let's also look at the market cap expectations and the margins. That's where we derive the valuations also. And if you look at it, the market cap, it's largely double. If you look at the range which have been given by analysts, and the margins is on the favorable side of ITC Hotels. But do remember, Indian Hotels also is having some budget hotels also in their category, and that is why there might be a reason that the margins might be slightly lower when it comes to ITC Hotels. And these are all the consolidated numbers as per FY24.
Much for that, Sharad. But let's take it across to Snehi now to get a sense as to what will be in store for ITC after the demerger, especially with respect to BAT stake and the other triggers forward. Snehi.
Well, absolutely. Now it merits a look on what is going to remain with ITC and what happens to ITC after the hotels business demerger, now that the record date is also here. ITC X Hotels price discovery happened at 459 rupees per share today, which was roughly lower by 22 rupees. This is what the traders also had previously broadly estimated that would happen to the price of the stock today. Now, how does ITC look today in terms of financials on the back of this demerger, post the demerger? If you take a look at the financials of ITC, the hotels business contributed 3,104 crores recently to the overall revenue, which made up 4% revenue of ITC. So we can expect a cut of roughly 3,100 crore rupees when it comes to the revenue part. Similarly, for PAT, ITC Hotels made up 3% of ITC Limited's overall PAT, which is roughly an amount of 765 crores. So from the overall PAT, we can expect a reduction of roughly 765 crore rupees in the next quarterly earnings as well. Now, how will the SOTP, the sum of the parts, shape up when it comes to ITC Limited? Remember, the cigarettes business made up 62% of the overall ITC Limited business, which will now come up to 64%. FMCG will contribute 18%. Paper boards, which is a strong segment for Q3, will contribute 5%. Agri will also come in at 5%, and IT and cash respectively at 4% and 4%, which will make up the total SOTP pie for ITC Limited post the demerger. Now, let's talk about what happens to the BAT stake. The British American Tobacco, they had already earlier stated that they plan to sell roughly 25% stake in ITC. Now, in correspondence to this 25% stake that they want to sell in ITC and ITC's 40% stake that they hold in ITC Hotels, this will roughly translate to a 15% stake sale in ITC Hotels from BAT. This is what we can expect to happen going ahead as well. Largely, what are some key triggers for ITC going ahead? The first and the biggest one is going to be the prospective GST tax. The chatter has been about the 35% tax bracket. It's not been discussed in the recent GST meeting, but could be on the agenda in the next one. So whether this 35% tax bracket goes through for cigarettes is going to be important to watch out for. Paper business, which contributes roughly 5% to the overall SOTP. Quarter 3 is largely expected to be a solid quarter for the paper business. So the numbers on this front will be important to watch out for. And lastly, also watch out for the FMCG business, because overall pure play FMCG players have been complaining about a slowdown in urban demand on the back of inflation, raw material inflation remaining sticky. So these are going to be some important triggers to watch out for. But well, yes, this is what ITC Limited will look like post the demerger of ITC Hotels.
Right. Okay. We'll leave it at that. Snehi, thanks for analyzing ITC's demerger and what's the next step here.